Welcome to Sand Table Gamers. I'm your host Frank, and I'll be making a do-it-yourself terrain for wargaming, and this is going to be hills made out of styrofoam and various other resources. So this is two examples of what I've done. I got a smaller hill and a bigger hill. This comes from inch-thick styrofoam, and this is about 2-inch thick styrofoam. It doesn't really make a difference how thick you want to make it. We'll start with all the materials. You're going to need styrofoam. This is a piece of styrofoam right in here. It's 1 inch thick. You can get these as insulation from your local hardware stores like Lowe's or Home Depot, and I get them in 3/4 inch, 1 inch. It's 8 feet by 4 feet sheets. It's quite a lot, but it's only about $10. So you can make dozens of hills for just $10. Another thing you're going to need is you're going to need your glue. I use a white glue, an Elmer's glue. You can use PVA, wood glue. Even Gorilla Glue has a wood version, as long as it's water-based. You're going to need a brush. This is a good brush from Home Depot or Lowe's for 99 cents. Real effective. I use it for mixing glue and painting. You'll need the paint itself. This is a black paint. This is white. This is a burnt umber, a brown color. This is a tan color. You'll also need a sealer. This is a paint-on sealing agent. It's clear. You gotta have it clear. This is actually a gloss. If you don't like gloss, you can go with a spray-on, which is a flat. It's also a clear sealer. You're also going to need this is like an X-Acto knife or a tile knife, a carpet knife. Anything that's sharp. It's got to be sharp because that's safer. So you'll need that. You're also going to need, this is flock, and it basically represents static grass. You can get this in almost any hobby shop. It does get a little expensive. And the last but not least, and this is probably one of the most important things you're going to need, this is a styrofoam hot knife. It cuts styrofoam. This little wire here will get about 600 degrees. You need to be very careful, it will burn you. But it goes right through styrofoam like a hot knife through butter. So let's start the process with our foam. What we do with the foam is we cut it into the shape we want by taking a piece of foam, maybe drawing an outline, however what shape you want. We use the hot knife to actually cut the shape and however we want it. Also, at the same time as you're going through, you want to go up and down and maybe at an angle. And the reason, it creates these little ridges in here, and also at an angle, you don't want it straight up down unless you're making a cliff, which you can do. But this is also going to create texture. And everything we do, we try to create texture because we want it to look natural, like it's from Mother Nature. Now, once we get the shape we want, and the angles and the texture, we need to mix the glue, the Elmer's glue here, with 75% glue and 25% water into a watered down version, in which what we'll do is we'll take the brush on all along here, and then we're going to sprinkle either sand or gravel, or I like to use cat litter because it's really cheap. You can get it into large bags, and it's readily available if you have a friend with a cat. You glue it on by simply applying the glue and then sprinkling on the gravel till you have the texture you want. You let that dry. It may take 20 minutes. Unless it's hot outside, it'll be even quicker. Once it's fully dried, you take another layer of that glue, that watered down glue, and you seal it so that you don't want the litter or the sand to break off. You seal it with the glue. After you do that and you've got it completely sealed, in all the areas you want gravel, you may even decide, I don't want to flock the top of the hill, I'll just put gravel on there. So you can do it all over. Once you do that, it's going to look something like this. Where this is all glued on, there's been another layer of glue placed on it and some's on top. This creates that texture I was talking about. From here, you're going to take your black paint and your brush, and you're going to cover with black paint all the areas that have gravel. This is your based foundation. It's like a base coat all the way, and that also helps to seal the gravel or the litter, or like I said, with the sand, whatever you want to use. It'll help seal that on. Now, from after you do that, you can also paint the white areas up in here with whatever color you want as a base color, because after you don't want the white to show through after you flock it. So what I do is I just paint this whole area green with a water-based green paint. And then when I put the flock down, if I miss any areas, all you're going to see is green. You can use brown if you want. You can even use black if you want. You can use any color grass you want. If you want some kind of alien environment with purple grass, you can use purple. It really is up to you the colors you want to do. But once that's painted black, it's going to look like this. This is that black I was showing you. Now what I do after the black is on there, I do 3 layers of dry brush. The first one is going to be my brown color, the burnt umber, and it's going to be a heavy dry brush, and it's going to look a little like this. It's not going to be solid, because you still want to see a little bit of the black in the crevices, but it's going to be a little thicker than your normal dry brush. From there I'll do a normal dry brush with the tan color. And a dry brush is basically when you put paint on the brush, you take off as much as you can so there's hardly any paint's going to come off. Because you just want to get that brush and the paint on the raised areas, and that'll look something like what we have right in here. It allows the paint to be on the raised areas of the miniature and the sand, but you can still see some of the brown and black in the crevices. So that gives a little shadow. From there I'm going to go with a white paint as my final dry brush. And this is going to be a very light dry brush, lighter than normal. And that'll look a little like this right in here, where you can still see some of the tan and the brown and the black. And a good example would be at the very top. What I've done is all the layers of paint in the dry brush. So you can see the black in there, the browns. Certain areas are going to be the tan, and a white on the raised rocks. That represents the sun bleaching those rocks after 1,000 years or whatever. So they're a little lighter. And it also breaks up the uniformity of the piece, so it looks more natural. You don't want a uniform color throughout everything because it doesn't look natural. You want this to look absolutely natural. And the last thing you would do is to use the glue, once again, a watered down glue in all the areas that have the green, or whatever color you chose to put, and then you just simply sprinkle the flock on, and that will cover the entire thing. When that's complete, what I like to do is to brush on the enamel on only the rock areas. Okay, you would brush it on thick. You want that to protect these areas, and it's another sealer that keeps the gravel from going anywhere. Do not paint on the grass. It'll just turn it to mud. It looks horrible. I learned it the hard way. On the grass, you'll just use a spray. You'll just spray this on. It's a flat finish. It's an enamel. With all the layers of paint that you already have on here, this will most likely not melt any of the foam. If it melts it a little bit, that's fine, because once again that creates multi-levels, elevations in your ground, and that creates a natural look, and that still works. But this is the best thing to do to spray on your flocked areas. And like I said, this is what it turns out to look like right here. This has been sprayed, so this will not come off. This has had it painted on, and that won't come off either. And you can see by looking at it, in between the layers and the texture, you've got the darker shadows in there. You got brighter on the top. It looks like rocks and gravel that's maybe eroded a little bit. And so you have this very natural look in your rocks, and in any of the games you play, whether it be Battletech or Flames of War, Warhammer 40k, Warhammer Fantasy, anything that has a table that is fighting on the ground, this will add cover, concealment, and it will look really good. And for the most part, it's a lot cheaper to do these because you're going to make quite a bit of them. It may cost you about $100 for all the materials, but if you were to buy this from a store, it would cost you maybe $20, $30 for this. And you can do maybe a dozen of these for $100. So you're winding up spending maybe about $5 to $10 to make these, where it would cost you $20 to $30 to buy them. And it's something to do. Thanks for watching. We'll have more videos later on.